Hi, my name is RJ Coronado. I am the Northwest organizer for the Harris County Democratic Party. If you're a newly elected precinct chair, you will be receiving an invitation for an action ID. However, if you need a new account, then you can also go to harrisdemocrats.org, proceed to the bottom of the screen, proceed to request VAN access if you need a new account, or if you need VAN help, then request VAN help. So what I'll do now is share my screen. And on one half of the screen, we'll have the VANual that you should have access to on the left-hand side for reference. And on the right-hand side, we'll just follow the steps that are in the VANual, and we'll walk through creating a list, a precinct organizing plan. We'll work on identifying voters to contact in your precinct, create a phone list of targets for volunteer recruitment, create a list for phone banking, create a virtual phone bank, create a block walking list, use Minivan, print a list for either phone banking or for block walking, and also printing labels for mailers to potential volunteers and contacting voters by text. Now, once you log on, you'll notice that you have two tabs up here at the top, My Voters and My Campaign. What we'll be focused on today is the My Voters part of VAN. My Campaign deals primarily with your volunteers. If you have Vote Builder access through the Harris County Democratic Party, you'll notice that our events are posted in My Campaign, and the volunteer list is for people that have signed up for events is also located in that tab. It's a great way to organize your volunteers, schedule them for events, and go back and look at past volunteer history, especially if you're doing some sort of recruitment with volunteers that you've worked with before. Under My Voters, you'll notice right away some different boxes: quick lookup, load data, lists, quick tasks, canvassing, get out the vote, reporting, and data analysis. Some of these boxes you may not see just because of the type of access that you have. But what we'll work on right now is creating a new list. And step one is creating a precinct organizing plan. So VAN makes creating a precinct plan more easy. Precinct chairs typically create lists of people in VAN that will be used for various purposes. You can use VAN TDP targets, which is a measure of political partisanship, and turnout history, both of which are categories available in creating a VAN list in order to create an organizing plan for your precinct. The targets and voting history are used in list creation to identify people who are likely to volunteer to create Get Out the Vote GOTV lists for phone banking and block walking. There are 5 general methods of contacting voters. That's through phones, block walking, mail, text, and email. So the VANual, again, will discuss using these categories for each of these methods of contact. Going back to the targets, TDP has developed a series of targets to be used statewide. TDP encourages precinct chairs to organize their communities using one of the target categories described in their document that is found at the link below. This is critical information for precinct chairs and precinct captains to understand and use in the creation of lists for phone banks, block walks, etc. The targets can be found at this link, which is this other document that we have pulled up. TDP targets, Texas VAN targets. This document is meant to be a working document that will explain the current criteria in the Texas VAN targets, as well as scripts that should be used when working through these lists. These targets are intended to be used as a base throughout the entire cycle, and they are continuously updated both with new criteria as well as canvas results, which basically means once you contact a voter either through canvassing or through phone banking, then the person that adds a response to your survey question, they will be removed from any sort of target that they were or updated and moved to a different target as we work through contacting voters. You should really use this time to get familiar with the TDP target document, go through it very thoroughly to make sure that you understand. We'll touch on the targets and the basics of what they are and what they go into, but we're not going to dive into too much detail. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to contact any of our staff, and their contact information will be posted at the end of this video. So the targets that we'll go over are the 2020 voter contact targets. Each of these tiers is mutually exclusive and excludes inactive voters. We exclude voters who have no current active registration, are deceased, are out of state without voting, or haven't voted in 10 plus years. Now, tier 1 are your low propensity Democrats. The turnout is, or I guess the tier goal is to turn out as many of these folks as possible. These folks will overwhelmingly vote Democratic if we can get them to vote. So we need to earn the trust of these folks and demonstrate to them why they should make their voices heard at the ballot box. Tier 2, voters of uncertain partisanship. The tier goal is to determine the partisanship of these voters to either expand our GOTV lists, expand our persuasion targets, or confirm these folks as Republican partisans and move on. That way we do not attempt to continue to contact them. The majority of this group are Democrats, but these are the folks that we are at least certain about how they will vote, although we do expect many of them to show up in November. Tier 3 are persuasion targets. Our tier goal is to persuade these folks to vote for Democrats. This group includes your independents, undecideds, and folks who have previously identified themselves as supporting both parties. This group is very likely to turn out to vote, so persuading these folks to vote for us may not only net a vote, but take a vote away from our opponents. And finally, tier 4, high propensity Democrats. Our tier goal is to build our volunteer base, fundraise, and leverage these voters to amplify campaign messages. We do not need to verify these voters' partisanship or convince them to turn out. They will vote overwhelmingly for us in November. They are also a good target to work with when doing volunteer recruitment. Again, specifically in your precinct, they would be good people to contact. Now that we've gone over targets, we'll move on to step 2, create a phone list for volunteer recruitment. The first method of contact for potential volunteers is often by phone. We use these targets and turnout history to create a phone list for the most reliable Democrats who may volunteer. Below, you'll see a summary of steps that we'll go ahead and walk through on the right. So on the main menu, where we are at on the right hand of the screen, we'll go ahead and click on Create a New List. I'm not sure what was up. And then you'll be taken to the screen. I like to have these search criteria favorited. And in order to favorite something, all you do is move over to the right-hand side. You'll notice the star. Mine is starred right now for early voting. I'll go ahead and unstar it. You'll notice right away that it sends it back down. Everything should be in alphabetical order. All you have to do to bring that search criteria back up is to come down here and click on the star on the right-hand side. This marks it as a favorite. And these are the 6 that I use most frequently. You may want to include other favorites as you get more comfortable with Van, but for the time being, I would recommend keeping these 6 up, and that is suppressions, addresses, home districts, phones, targets, and early voting. So right away, we'll go ahead and start with creating the list. We'll come up to the top and check on suppressions, and we'll click on this blue highlighted button that says remove all suppressions. This just ensures that we start off with the best list of people, because we'll narrow them down further as we get into home districts and phones. And to minimize this box, all you do is click on this arrow beside suppressions, and then we'll click on home districts. Now you're going to want to click down on the arrow by county. You'll notice that Harris is the only option. Once you mark Harris, you will see the precinct drop-down menu appear. You can select your precinct. Now on my end, because I am a staff member, I have multiple precincts. You should only see one precinct available if you only have access to your own precinct. And we'll just do a test precinct and we'll do 0011. Now we have our precinct selected. We'll go ahead and narrow this down. Right now, we have every voter that lives in this precinct, 0011, selected. Now, we probably have some Republicans in that list because we haven't narrowed them down by target. So we do want to further minimize that list. And we'll do that by going down to targets. And again, these are the targets that we discussed earlier. The targets that we'll be working with in this training, and also that you'll notice in the VANual, are your volunteer, has volunteer history, and volunteer, likely volunteer. These are pretty self-explanatory. These are people, Democrats, that have volunteer history. They've gone through an event in the past, they volunteered before, or they're likely volunteers. So they're people that may have expressed interest in volunteering, and we have that marked down through these targets. So we'll want to go ahead and check on both of them because we want to make sure that this list is large enough to create a phone bank. If we only have 10 people on this list because 10 people in this precinct have volunteered, or maybe just one, it's not a very good list to work with to make a phone bank out of. So again, we'll go ahead and minimize the targets and we'll move up to phones. We are making a phone banking list. And on the drop-down menu by type, you'll want to click Cell and Home. And then for is a cell, include likely cell. Now on the drop-down menu for phone quality score, we want to select very high, high, and medium. And right now what we're doing is just pulling the best possible phone numbers for these voters that are in those targets that we selected. We don't want to waste our time calling a number that may not work. So these are providing us with the best quality numbers for these people to contact. Again, that way we're not wasting time on phone numbers that may not work or are not very good or associated with that voter. So we'll go ahead and close this phone box and we will scroll over to the side here. And what I'll do is maximize my screen so y'all can see that. And click on Preview My Results. So we have 11 people on this list to work with in this precinct. That's 11 phones, 11 doors, 11 mailboxes. You always want to make sure that you click on Preview My Results. Just in case you make a mistake, you can go back here and figure out what sort of step you missed to get to this number, or what you need to change in order to either expand this list or decrease it. But you'll also notice this box up here displays the types of search criteria that we selected. So you'll notice the districts that we selected, precinct 0011, county, the targets that we selected, the voter status, and the suppressions that we removed, and also the phone types up here. The one box that I did not go over was this early voting box. Right now it's selected for the Texas primary runoff. That's the most recent election that we had. Because this box is checked, it excludes people who have early voted or absentee. This button may not work at the moment just because the runoff has been over for a couple of weeks, but typically during GOTV, whenever we exclude people who have early voted or absentee voted, that just ensures that we remove those people off of that list, because if we're doing get out the vote, we don't want to contact people that have already voted. So we'll go ahead and uncheck this box. It shouldn't do anything. We should still have 11 people. Great, so we have our list of 11 people in the precinct who are likely volunteers or have volunteer history. And you want to start off again if you're in your precinct, if you want to recruit and try to get more people involved, these are the first set of people that you want to talk to just because they fit these targets. So what I'll do is go ahead and drag my screen this way. That way y'all can see the VANual again. Perfect. And I'll click on Run Search. Now, once you run search, you'll see the same numbers up here, the 11 people, 11 home phones. And then you'll notice these other buttons at the top, along with all this other stuff. You'll also see your list of voters down here. These are all the people, 11 people that are in this list, again, that fit those target criteria that we just made. Following the VANual, we want to go ahead and save this list. Let's say you are in the middle of something, or you just want to make sure that you save this list of people because you want to work on this later. All you have to do is come up here, click Save List As. You'll see these two buttons. You want to go ahead and select Saved List. Now you can use the drop-down menu next to Folder to choose where to save the search. You'll notice I have a whole ton of folders. You may want to create a new folder, especially if you're a new precinct chair. You may not see any folders populated in this box. So we'll go ahead and create a new folder just for the purposes of this video. And we'll type a descriptive name and enter some descriptive information in the box. You may want to include the purpose, the area, and the date in this list name or in the description box. So for this folder, we'll name it my precinct. And then we'll also just add a test so that way I know later that I can go ahead and remove this or change anything because this is what we used for the video. Now for name, you may want to name it Precinct 0011. If this is your precinct or if you're managing just your precinct, you may want to start off with that because you know it's your precinct, and then something else like volunteers, possible volunteers, anything that lets you know that this is the purpose for this list that you created. Under your description, you may want to put something like targets used, likely volunteer, and volunteer history, and anything else that you think would help you remember or just be very descriptive with, I guess, the precinct or search criteria or list that you made. After that, you'll want to go ahead and click on Save. And now your list is saved. I'll go back right now and we'll come back to this list just so y'all know where to get back to things. Now, whenever you have your screen up, you'll be able to click on the My Voters button. It'll take you home. Mine does not let me do that at the moment, so you can also click on these three lines right here and click on Home. That'll take you back to the main screen. And our list is not gone. It is saved under My Folders. So if we click on View My Folders, it'll scroll down and look for that folder that we just saved. My Precinct Test. Perfect. So if you open up that folder, you'll see the list that we just made, the description, the name, the number of people in it, the owner, the date that it was created. You'll be able to go in and edit it. So all you need to do in order to get back to that list or that screen that we were on is go ahead and click on that. You'll see, are you sure you want to load this list and overwrite your current version of my list? Yes. Great, so now we're back at my list. This may not necessarily be the perfect list to make a phone bank out of, especially if you're wanting to share it, but this would be a good list of people to call through, again, to get you to volunteer with you in your precinct, get them more involved. Maybe you want to identify a precinct captain or somebody else that can take the lead in your precinct to just expand on the organizing efforts for your precinct. So what we'll do to create a list for phone banking is create a brand new list. Don't worry, this list is saved as we just saw. So we'll go ahead and click back on home, and we'll come back to this create a new list. And again, we have our search criteria favored, the ones that we use most frequently favorited up here at the top. We'll start off with suppressions, remove all suppressions, come back over here and click the arrow. We'll go back to home districts. Remember to click on Harris, and for precinct 0011, come back here to the top, minimize that. And what we'll do this time is work on voting history. And this is one of the ones that I do not have favorited. Again, you will have different ones favorited just based on how you're organizing your precinct. And as you get more van savvy, you'll want to include more things than we may show in this video. But I'll go ahead and favorite this one so we can have that up at the top. And we'll click on voting history. Okay, so we have our voting history selected, and we want to include anyone who did at least. So we'll go ahead and mark that on this side and enter 2 of the following. So the people that we're selecting right now have voted in at least 2 of the following elections. So we'll go ahead and select on 2018 general, 2016 general, and 2014 general. And after we've selected that, we'll go ahead and minimize that again. And then we will click on the arrow by phones. And now that we have our phones box open, we want to come down to type, and we'll go ahead and mark it cell and home. And you'll notice this may be a little bit different than the VANual we have on the left-hand side. Things are constantly being updated. So please, again, use this video as a guide in addition to the VANual. On the drop-down menu for phone quality score, which is the box down here, we want to select very high, high, and medium. And again, as we discussed previously, we can close this down and come over to preview my results. And I'll expand my screen so I can do that. So now with these criteria up here, we have 466 people selected. When you click on this drop-down menu here, and it's taking a little bit to load, you'll see 422 phones, 334 doors, which because we're making a phone list, we don't care too much about. The same with mailboxes. So that number is important. We have 422 phones for 466 people. You're dealing with households here, so there may be some shared numbers or numbers that are associated with a specific voter or multiple voters. And after that, we'll go ahead and click on Run Search. So with this list of people to phone bank, we can come back over here and click on the Save List As. And again, you now know how to save a list based on what we did before. Saved list, we can come back to our folder and come down to my precinct test, which is where we saved the other list that we created. We can name this one precinct 011 phone banking list. And again, you can name it whatever you'd like, just as long as you remember what type of list you created and what went into that list. The description also helps for that. We can mark voting history 2018, 2016, 2014, general, at least 2 of the following. You can word that a whole lot better just so that you know or understand what that list was for. We'll go ahead and click on save. That list is saved and we're back at this screen. Now with this list, we want to go ahead and create a virtual phone bank. So now that we're on the list screen, it's very easy. All we do is click on this calls icon. This should be the only option that populates, set up virtual phone bank list. We'll go ahead and click on next. And then you want to use this static list, the fixed set of people, which is the list that we just saved and we're working with, and select continue. And then you want to click on the arrow to the left of the virtual phone bank details. Yours may be minimized, so when you click it, it expands it. And then we want to input a name. What we can do with this list, and again, this is a list of likely voters who have voted in 2 of the last elections and reminding them to vote in November. So maybe this is a GOTV list for your precinct. We can name this something like GOTV precinct 0111. You'll also want to select a script. If you are going through HCDP, which if you're watching this video, then you are, you will see some HCDP scripts up here. And as we get closer to the election, you'll see a GOTV one. There's also one down here. We'll go ahead and use this for our test. And then you can select a start date and an end date. All this does is if once we create the phone bank, you'll actually get a link. And with that link, you can share your phone bank with other people. Let's say you have those volunteers from that list that we created that want to help you out and also call into that same list or into this list for GOTV. All you have to do is share them on that link and they can start calling. And we put an end date that closes the phone bank. And what we can do is make it for the day after Election Day. And for sharing, you want to make sure that you click on Publish to open VPB. If it's not visible in Open VPB, then you will not be able to share it. And then we want to scroll down and click on this arrow to expand additional settings. Next to daily availability, always make sure that it's set from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. This is legally the time that we can make calls to voters. Next to householding, you want to select show all in household. Mine's already selected, but this just ensures that every voter that we want to speak with or everybody that's in the household is displayed. That way, if we call a number and it's not the voter that is in front of us, that we can just click on over to somebody else that's in the household if we're speaking with that person. Under alternate numbers, we want to select attempt all alternate numbers. You can also select attempt only alternates with very high and high. But again, we want to make sure that we include all those numbers that we made the list for, so attempt all alternate numbers. And next to skipping, select allow users to skip contacts and households. This just allows people to, again, skip over a specific household if they may not feel comfortable calling that person for whatever reason, or if you've gone through the phone banking list and there may not be a number associated with that person, just make sure that that box is checked. And also down here under status, you want to make sure that your phone bank is active. And then we will scroll back up and click on next. And then you'll notice this VPB code open up over here. You don't have to worry about this phone banking code. What you should be focused on is this Open VPB link. On the top right corner of the screen, you can click copy. And with this link, whenever you share it with other volunteers, they can now call into this phone bank that you just created. Below this box in the display settings box, you can click on save and preview. With this save and preview, you'll see a sample of what your phone bank looks like. So right away, we see that there's a voter, the voter's phone number, the script, That's all listed down here. We can go ahead and close that. And then once you're done, you go ahead and click on the blue save box near the top. And then in order to get to this phone bank on your end, you will just go ahead and click on home. On the bottom right, you'll see quick tasks, virtual phone bank. Again, I have a few phone banks listed here, but you'll see at the very top is the one that we just created. Then if you click on next, it is the phone bank we just created. So after you finish a call, you want to make sure that you enter relevant data. If you don't happen to reach this person, if you phone bank before, you may already notice some of these options: not home, refused, deceased, moved, busy, left message, wrong number, disconnected. Anytime a voter hangs up on you or just doesn't answer, if you're not leaving voicemails, then all you do is click on not home. That just makes sure that these people stay in this list and we attempt to contact them again. Only put refused if you actually reach the voter and they let you know they never want to be called again or they want to be taken off your list. That's the only time that you should mark this refused option. All the other options, depending on the type of script you're working for, you'll notice that there are responses down here. Do you consider yourself a Democrat? Can we count on you to vote election day in the runoff? Have you returned your mail ballot? After you're done, after you've either marked that you couldn't reach this voter, or if you've put down one of these responses, all you do is come down here to the bottom and click Save and Next Call. You may also notice it at the top. Either way, that'll just make sure that you get taken over to the next person. And as I discussed earlier, that button where we marked Show All in Household, you'll notice that there's multiple people in this household. So if you call this number and Jonathan doesn't happen to answer, but it is Hermie Escamilla, all you do is click on over to Hermie, and you're able to put in a response. Again, if you can reach, or down here at the bottom. For allowing others to call with your list, for people who have a VAN account, they should log in as they normally do. You are able to share this phone bank with other people. For volunteers who don't have a VAN account, share the OpenVPB link. Great, so now we can move on to the fifth part of our VANual, which is creating a block walking list. We'll go over these steps on how to target low turnout Democrats to vote. Right now, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we're not doing a whole lot of block walking, but this can be used once things get better and we are able to meet voters face-to-face. This is a great way to create a block walking list. And again, we'll walk through the summary of steps. That way you're able to create a list to reach voters face-to-face. So on the main page, we'll go ahead and start off the same, and that's creating a new list. And again, right away, we want to go to our suppressions, remove all suppressions. You should be a lot more comfortable with this as we continue creating new lists. This time we want to focus on addresses because we are creating a block walking list. We want to check the boxes for walkable houses and USPS verified only. This just ensures that we're getting addresses that are verified by the US Postal Service and that are actually walkable. We don't want to send any block walkers to homes that aren't accessible. We'll go ahead and minimize this, and we'll go to home districts. Again, we'll go to Harris, and we'll work with the same precinct that we did before, 0011. And we'll go ahead and minimize this. Under target, you want to choose an appropriate target that meets the objective or objectives of the block walk. If we are working on just general voter contact, we can try to reach out to Democrats with low engagement. which is what we'll do here. We'll go ahead and minimize this. And again, we want to preview my results and adjust the voting history to increase or decrease the size of the list if needed. So we have about 387 people. If you open this up, you'll notice that we have 285 doors, which is what we want to focus on when we're making a block walking list. Those are the doors that we'll be knocking on. We don't care too much about the phones or particularly the number of people, since there are multiple people generally in a household. So come back over here and run search. Next, we want to click the round blue gear near the top right corner of the screen, which you'll notice over here. And drag and drop the squares for phone, cell phone, work phone from the top row. Which you'll notice up here. So again, drag and drop the squares for phone, cell phone up here, and work phone. And this just ensures, again, because we're making a block walking list, that we're removing those columns from our list. And then we'll also uncheck the boxes that we don't need. You'll notice on the VANual that the ones that we need to check are the person count and the door count. So we'll go ahead and remove the phone count and the sales statuses, and we can also uncheck the mailbox count. Once you're done, you'll want to go down here and click on Save Changes. And then we can save list as. Again, saved list. If you're pretty comfortable with the way that you organize your things, you can save it in the same folder, My Precinct Test. If you want to keep your phone banking list and your block walking list separate, then you can create a new folder. Again, we may want to name this something like Precinct 011, block walk list, and for the description, Tier 1 Democrats with low engagement. And then we'll go ahead and click Save. In order to print this report, you want to follow the directions in Section 7, which we will discuss later on in this video. Right now, we want to focus on cutting turf. So from a block walk list, cutting turf organizes your list of addresses into small geographical groups for block walking. You can cut turf automatically or manually based on your preferences and technical abilities. Manually cutting turf is more efficient and targeted. You know your precinct better than somebody else. Sometimes when you automatically turf, it will try to put houses as close together as possible, but they may cross over some sort of geographical roadblock or like a pond or something where if you're actually walking the list, it may not make a whole lot of sense to group those households together for a block walker. They may have to drive to get one place or the other. We do recommend manually cutting turf. Again, you can do either one, whichever you're most comfortable with. Now to cut turf manually, we're back at this My List page. We want to cut turf, and you'll notice right away that that button's right here. On the Cut Turf page, visually identify a cohesive group of black dots. These all represent doors to knock. You're going to draw a boundary around the dots using the cursor. On my screen, you'll notice the plus sign. We can zoom in. And you want to pick a location just outside of the area you are targeting and click the cursor. Let's say we are working with this group of streets right here. Let's say we want to make this a turf. And again, these are sample turfs. You, again, will know the best way to turf your things out. So let's say we want to work, again, with this block right here, these two streets. We'll go ahead and click right here. You'll notice this white box that's checked. We want to keep it on the outside, so we'll go ahead and click down here. You'll notice a line is drawn already. And just imagine that you are trying to fill a square, and we'll come over here, and it all connects, and then we'll come back up here, and it highlights everything. To close the box or circle, you always want to click on the starting point where you made your first click. Sometimes you may lose track of where you first started your turf, so you just always want to keep in mind where you started. It just makes things easier. And you'll want to click right here, and that closes your turf. If you do happen to forget where the first box was, if you click on these boxes, I would recommend just clicking on the outside. Again, just focusing on these white boxes. If you click outside of it, it'll add another dot until you find where you actually started. So right now we have our turf closed. Going off of the VANual, again, you don't want to make a turf that crosses a busy street if at all possible, as this is dangerous and time consuming for the persons walking the turf. You know your turf better than anybody else. If this doesn't make sense, feel free to drag it down here. But just based off of this map, it looks like Canal Street may be one of the main streets or a pretty busy street. So maybe you just want to keep people in these neighborhoods. You wouldn't want to drag this turf out down here. If you do want to expand your turf though, whoops, all you have to do is click on one of these boxes and drag it down. If you include these households, if you drag it down past these households, it'll include it into your turf. So you notice that the turf number increased. You also want to come up here to the legend and click on make sure the households is selected or the doors is selected. So you want to make sure that your screen shows 11 doors. Again, you don't, or the number of doors, you don't care too much about the people that are in the turf or the number of people that are in the turf. You're really focused on the number of doors, since multiple people may live in the same household. And again, just going back to the VANual, if there is a dot just outside of your boundary, you can put the cursor over the boundary, click and hold the cursor on the closest white box, and drag and move the boundary line until the dot is inside your boundary. If you want to keep increasing this turf, if you've block walked before, you know that say about 30 to 40 doors is a good 3-hour day. You may have some very eager and excited block walkers that do more doors, and your turfs are not going to be perfect. You may have some that have 40 doors, some that have 30, some that may have as few as 20 or even less than that. You, again, just want to make sure that it's as walkable as possible and that you are putting your block walkers in a position that is safe and that they are able to walk each and every house. You'll notice again, if you click on the people or the house icon in the legend box, which we discussed earlier on the right of the map, you can see the number of doors or people in your boundary. Right now we have 23 doors selected. If you click on the household, we have 25 people selected. You want to do this for each group of dots in order to create several walking turfs. You want to try to equalize the number of doors in each turf if you can, or be aware that busier turfs will take longer. Now, we won't go through every single turf, but once you're done including each of these households, all you do is come up here and click on Save and Finish. I would recommend creating a new folder if you are doing block walking, one for just specifically block walking. We can do precinct 011, block walking, canvassing. Under the region name, you know, again, that's up to you. You can name your region in the box. You want to do the precinct 011, and you can mark it one turf cut, or however many turfs that you end up cutting for that precinct. You can leave a description if you'd like. And once you're done, you'll just come down and click on save. Now we'll come back to this screen here, but these are your turfs that are saved. You should only see this one for your precinct selected. You won't see any of these on the bottom. Now that we have our turf saved and cut, in order to get back to walk through creating turf automatically, we can click on the home button, go back to the My List page. If you were just working on this list, this is the same for any list that you're working with. You can always click on Go to My List to go back to that same group of people that you were working with. We'll do that in this case. Otherwise, you would just go to View My Folders and go back to the saved list that you had that we walked through before. So we'll go ahead and click on Go to My List. We'll come back here to Cut Turf. And you'll notice because we were working on this list before, it is still up here. So this is the same turf that we cut before. But now we're going to walk through cutting turf automatically. So on the left side of the Cut Turf menu, you want to select the starburst icon, which is this one right here. Once you hover over it, you'll notice that it says Create Turfs Automatically. We'll go ahead and click on that. Now under the group addresses, which is the button that you'll want to take or select group addresses close to each other. The number of addresses per turf may vary. You want to use the drop-down arrow to select the number of turfs that you want to create, preferably as many as canvassers as you have. Let's say you have 5 people signed up for your canvassing event from that first list that we made of volunteers. We'll go ahead and make it 6 because you're probably going to be canvassing as well. And we'll come down to Auto Cut. You'll notice right away that the turfs are cut. Again, we want to click on this people icon and we'll see the number of doors for each turf that are highlighted. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so y'all can see that. All these turfs are cut. Again, in order to come back in and edit this, maybe, you know, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You'd rather keep your canvassers on these 2 streets here. All you do is drag these little boxes and it'll remove those households. You'll notice these black dots here. Those are not turfed out. And on the right-hand side, you'll see on the legend as well. This is good if you happen to miss a household. Sometimes there are little dots that you think that you've highlighted. They may not be in there, but you'll see 6 unassigned doors. If we drag this back over to include them in the turf that we cut, there are now 0 unassigned doors. So every door in this precinct is accounted for, or on this list, block walking list that we're making. If you make a mistake, you can also come up here to undo the last click. You'll see that just undid the last drag and drop that I did. So go ahead and re-drag and drop that. You can also click this Erase All Turfs in your map region. Are you sure you want to clear all turf? This action cannot be undone. We'll click OK. and that erases everything. If you happen to make a big mistake, that's a good button to use to start over. Or if you are a perfectionist and you are trying to make your turfs perfect, sometimes that's good to just start over. We'll go ahead and cut the turfs automatically again. Perfect, no unassigned doors. Each of these turfs has a good number of doors. You probably don't want to have 59 doors in one turf. And once we're done, we want to click on the Save and Finish button. On the Save My Map region menu, you want to select the folder. Your folder name should appear, which is this one. You'll notice these precincts that are automatically cut, or the turfs that are automatically cut. Now we can go on to to printing the turf maps. This is good if you want to provide your block walkers with a paper map. I know a lot of people do this. They have the map stapled on the back of their clipboards. It's just a great way for people that may park and walk to use as a guide. It shows all the little households. So we'll go ahead and print these turf maps. So a file for each of the turf cuts will appear in your folder. Follow the steps below for each turf cut. So you want to select the down arrow to the right of the turf in your directory and click on print. We'll go ahead and work with that first turf in our precinct. We'll come over here and click on the arrow and select print turf. Under report format, we'll select 2020 HCDP GOTV. And this one is used specifically when walking. During 2020, yours may be different if you're doing block walking later on. And after you selected your report format, you want to come down here to the script. This ensures that whether your volunteers are walking in person and you need a script printed, or even in minivan, that there is a script that populates for your canvassing efforts. So we'll go ahead and click on this GOTV one. Make sure that under contacted how, that walk is selected. Enter a descriptive name. You may want to title it something different other than Precinct 011, Turf 1. Maybe you want to include the street name. Again, whatever your comfort level is with Van, or however you organize things, I would recommend doing that. The sort order boxes should already be populated. And if you come down here, you just want to make sure that under contacted, or I'm sorry, that we select print map. And then we'll want to scroll down and select print. And this will send it as a PDF file. You'll be taken to the screen that says your PDF is being created. If you have a large list, the PDF creation process may take a few minutes. So just follow these instructions to check on your files at any time. You can go back to the main menu and look for a link that says My PDF Files, or you can also go back to My Turfs. What we'll do is go home, and you'll see My PDF Files right here. There's now a 1 right beside it. So when we open this up, you'll notice that the same turf that we were just working with is now listed as a PDF file. You'll want to select Download File. And then all you do is come over here and select Print, or however it populates for you on your end in order to print the turf packet summary. You should be good to go. And now we can move on to the next step, which is Minivan version 8. You use Minivan mainly for block walking. You can download the Minivan Touch app from the App Store or the Google Play Store. You'll be prompted to create an action ID. If you're a precinct chair, you can log in with your precinct chair credentials for your action ID. And then your password must have 8 characters minimum, with 1 lowercase character, 1 uppercase, and 1 number or special character. Save your password somewhere where you'll be able to retrieve it each time that you use the app. You'll need to set up two-factor authentication, but the text messages will come to the phone the Minivan app is on, so it won't require any sort of extra devices. Next, you'll want to enter the list number from a turf or walk packet. This number is a hyphenated number. We still have our turf packet summary pulled up here, and you'll notice that that list number shows up right here to the left of your turf. That's the number that you'll want to put into Minivan. The list number you enter will download all of these addresses, a map of all the addresses, the script that we see down here, and the names of the residents or voters and details about them. Your list number will have different addresses than someone else's. You can, however, work a turf with another person, and Minivan will keep track of which addresses have been done by either per person, provided that you sync, which is discussed below. Once you begin your canvas, you always want to make sure that you bring a charger and any handouts. Your handouts may include this turf packet that we just printed with this map, or any sort of other materials that you provide for your canvases. A pen is a good idea just in case as well. You also want to choose where to start. You can walk your turf in any order that you like. You can start near where you park or start far away and then walk back to your car. You can also sort your list by addresses, people's names, or a map. The app will find your next closest address if you click Find My Next Address. If you don't talk to a voter on your list, then you can enter why you didn't by choosing from the menu, either not home or refused, if you talk to a voter on your list. Now, you also want to use the script as a guide to your conversation at a door. I think this also kind of goes with phone banking, but a little bit more whenever you're meeting a voter or speaking with a voter face-to-face. The script will have specific questions that you should try to get the voter to answer. You will enter the answers by clicking the appropriate place in the script and selecting the answer given by the voter. You can enter phone numbers or other data on the Details tab. And then you can also enter notes near the bottom of that same tab. When you leave the door, once you click the sync button at the top right of the screen, there's also a sync button on the home menu button, which is located in the upper left corner of the screen, and it looks like 3 stacked horizontal lines. Phone data is also not required to use Minivan. You can download the list and then sync the results using Wi-Fi. If you lose your signal, Minivan will queue up the data while you're off the grid and then sync once you get back into Wi-Fi range. Minivan will guide you from house to house without carrying unwieldy maps and address lists. In addition, you can enter data in real time while block walking, then sync that data at the end of the block walk. Otherwise, you need to record responses by hand and then enter that info into Van when you are done with your block walk. The list will stay in the system for several days should the need arise. Now, for printing call lists, you now have a list of potential volunteers to contact by phone. Here's how to locate your list in Van. What we'll do is go back to the Van screen. So now we're back on the main page. We want to go to the list box in the center of the page and click on View My Folders. You want to click on the name of the folder where you save the search. And we had that listed as My Precinct Test. And then you want to click on the name of the saved list. So that's the first one that we were working with, the Precinct 0011, possible volunteers. And we'll go ahead and click OK. And then to call your list of voters without printing, Grid View gives you a clean page for data entry, but does not have a script. So on the My List screen where we're back at, you'll want to go ahead and click on the grid icon, which you'll see right here. You'll select Use My List. Next, under Script, again, we'll go ahead and use the GOTV template. Under contacted how, because we are calling, we'll mark it as phone. And for sort order, you want to select street name. Make sure ascended or ascending is selected. For sort order 2, you want to select street number. For sort order 3, you want to select apartment number or apartment, and make sure that ascended or ascending is selected. And then you want to go down to select next. And again, this is probably good for that first list that we made where we have about 11 people that live in your precinct. You can contact their numbers that are listed here to the right, and then you can mark the results as you make those calls. So for example, if you don't happen to reach Clarissa on your first try, you can come over here and mark not home. It's the same as we showed in the actual phone bank that we created. On the right-hand side, you'll see the same party questions if they're a Democrat, if they have a vote plan made, and once you're done, the results should save after you put them in. And you can also print your list to call these potential volunteers. Anytime you print information from VAN, you must treat this confidential information appropriately. Properly dispose of all printed lists by shredding them after use. Make sure you just keep that in mind with all the documents that you print out or save if you end up doing so. So what we'll do is go back home to access our list. Again, you can click that up here, or you can click on these 3 arrows or my voters just to get back home. We'll go back to go to my list. It's the same list that we're working with. And then we can click on the print icon here. Under report format, we want to select on 2020 HCDP GOTV. For script, 2020 HCDP volunteer recruitment. Under contacted how, we'll select phone. And under title, enter a descriptive title, including purpose and date. So we can name this volunteer recruitment, August 1st, which is the date that we're making this video. And under sort order, again, we'll go back to street name, street number, apartment, and make sure the ASC box is checked again. And then you wanted to check the boxes next to header single row, print people, and print footer. You'll notice that these boxes are already checked. We'll want to go ahead and go down to the bottom and click on next. The next screen shows that your PDF is being created. This is the same process that we did for the previous step. And in order to get back to it, you can go ahead and click on this main menu button. You can also click on my PDF files. If it's a big document, it may not be uploaded very quickly. So if you click on my PDF files, you may not see it appear. You'll see it appear on this end again because it is a small document. What we'll do is now that we have our file pulled up, we want to check the box next to the file that we want to print, which is the volunteer recruitment. And I spelled the recruitment wrong, August 1st. And we will come down over here to download file. And you'll notice that the list that we created has the name of the voters in addition to the survey questions listed on the right. If everything is formatted great, perfect, we'll go ahead and file and print. Again, on your end, for printing, it may look a little bit different just depending on what type of computer you're using or program. Great. So now if we want to print a block walk list without actually cutting any turf, please note anytime that you print information from VAN, you must treat this confidential information appropriately, properly dispose of all printed lists by shredding them after use. On my list screen, you will have to click on the print icon, and you'll notice that we have our list pulled up from the Tier 1 Democrats of people that we want to block walk for. So we'll go ahead and click on this print icon. Under report format, we'll select 2020 HCDP GOTV. For script, we can use the 2020 TDP DEMS ID script for doors or for calls. Under contacted how, again, because this is a block walking list, make sure that you select walk. Under title, enter a descriptive title, including purpose and date. You can name this Precinct 011 block walk list. And there is a preset sort order with boxes already filled. The odd even sort order keeps the odd and even number addresses on different pages so that you can walk down one side of the street at a time. So we'll go ahead and scroll down and check the box next to print map. And then we'll go ahead and scroll on over to click next. And then we can click on this main menu while our PDF is being created. In the View Your Dashboard box in the upper left of the screen, you can click on My PDF Files, and then check the box next to the file that you want to print. And that's the list that we're working with. We'll go ahead and move over to the right and click on Download File. And we have our block walking list here. You'll see the map with all the block walking targets or people that are included. And then you can go ahead and file and print. Next, we'll discuss printing labels for mailers to potential volunteers. If you would like to contact potential volunteers by mail, it is useful to print labels using your VAN list. Again, anytime you print information from VAN, you must treat this confidential information appropriately, properly dispose of all printed lists by shredding them after use. So on the main menu, you want to click on View My Folders. You want to click on the name of the folder where you save the search. For training purposes, we'll go back to the search or list that we were using, which is my precinct test. And we'll click on the name of the saved list. Click OK. And then we'll click on the labels icon. Now under title, you can name it Precinct 011, volunteer mail. Again, you can get creative with your title just as long as you know what you're using it for. And then under label format, you'll notice that these options are available. They're standard mailing labels. We'll go ahead and click on the first one. Once you've selected your label type, you'll want to come down to householding and select print one label per address. You can also play around with the household label if you want the Smith family, the Smith home, the Smith household. It will populate for the name of the voter, that household that you're working with. And then we will go ahead and scroll down to the bottom and click on Next. your PDF is being created, we can view our file back here at home under My PDF Files. We have our volunteer mail for our labels. We'll go ahead and check this box next to the file that you want to print. Scroll over to the right and click on Download File. And now our labels are populated here. Again, once you're done, you'll just click on File Print or Print, just depending on your computer that you're using or the system that you're working with. And finally, we're on Contact Voters by Text. You can edit your phone list to send text to voters using the Google Voice app. This requires downloading the app to your device. So we'll go ahead and go back to our original list. Again, we'll do that by clicking View My Folders, scrolling down to my precinct test, and pulling up our list. We'll work with the first list that we did, the precinct 0011, possible volunteers. So once you have your list pulled up, you will come up here to Edit Search. You'll see the Edit Existing Search button. We'll go ahead and select that. In the phone section, which we will scroll back down to, under Is a Cell, you want to make sure that Likely Cell is selected. Under Type, you also want to make sure that Cell is selected. And then we will go ahead and preview my results. We'll go ahead and run search. You'll want to come up here and click on the round blue gear icon in the upper right corner of the screen. Make sure that you drag the cell phone square into the top columns in the list row if it is not there. So it is not. We'll go ahead and drag that up. We'll make sure that the phone count is selected. Everything else can stay the same, and we'll go ahead and save. And then you just want to follow the Google Voice app directions to send text to these phone numbers that are listed down here. It's great. Thank you very much for joining us. I know that you may have additional questions. Feel free to reach out to any of our staff, specifically our organizers. I'll go ahead and include their information after this video. That way you can reach out to them via email. If you have any questions or Van Help, click on the Request Van Help bottom on the right side of the initial web page of harrisdemocrats.org or email van@harrisdemocrats.com. Thank you so much to Mark Malikoff, our Data and IT Director, for organizing our amazing VANual and all of our precinct chairs and their access to Van. Also to all of our staff and volunteers that contributed to the 2020 HCDP VANual and this training video. Thank you so much and have a great day.